in the context of popular culture. Has anyone heard of this term called breaking the internet? I hear a yes. If you've not heard of this term, I'll enlighten you a little bit. So it is the year 2014, and Kim Kardashian has been asked to do a photo shoot with Paper Magazine. And a few months after she's asked to do this photo shoot, Paper Magazine drops their provocative edition. It's a Winter 2014 spread of Kim Kardashian's photo shoot, and the internet goes bananas. Everybody goes to the website, and then on that day, 50 million people go to the Paper Magazine website, and the entire internet is just brought to its knees because of this one article. And this 50 million hits on the website, it represents about 1% of the total daily internet traffic generated in the United States alone. And Kim Kardashian, well, she is no stranger to harnessing the power of social media, correct? She is a prolific person on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and because of this Paper Magazine article, the term breaking the internet is formed. And Paper Magazine might have spawned this term, but breaking the internet continues to hold its own weight today. And it has come to mean the virality of a person, an event, or a news piece, and its ability to proliferate like wildfire throughout the entire internet. So fast forward to 2017, we see Beyonce breaking the internet as well. So just this month, she publishes on Instagram the first pictures of her newborn twins, Sir Carter and Ruby. And because of this Instagram picture, within a matter of 1 hour, there's 2 million likes on Instagram posts. And this Instagram post becomes the top most liked Instagram of all time. Once again, the headlines read, Beyonce breaks the internet by posting the first picture of her twins. Also happening this month in July, HBO website totally crashes during the Game of Thrones season premiere because there's an unprecedented amount of people going to the website during the season premiere of the episode. And this goes down in HBO history as the top most viewership for any season premiere episode in HBO's line of shows that they carry. And if you look at the trends today, the amount of internet traffic is not going down, it's actually going up. And by 2020, that amount of internet traffic is going to double. So last year alone, there was a total of 1 zettabyte of internet data that was generated globally. So who knows what a zettabyte is? We know a gigabyte is 9 zeros. A terabyte, some of you might have heard of a terabyte, is 12 zeros. A petabyte is 15 zeros. How many zeros do you think are in a zettabyte? And don't look at your mobile phones. Just have a good guess.
24.
24 is higher than what a zettabyte actually is, but that's a good guess. Yeah, 21 is correct. So 1 zettabyte is actually 10 to the 21 bytes. And that is a phenomenal amount of traffic that is generated globally. So with that number, the amount of mobile data access costs that came with that was about $300 billion just last year. And the amount of power used to supply the data centers energy to support the internet was actually at 3% of global power consumption. And if you think about this term, the cloud computing, social networking that is supported by the cloud, video streaming, multiplayer online gaming, these things are supported by the cloud, correct? The cloud is not actually some giant computer in the sky. The cloud is actually a remote area where a group of servers come together to form what's called a data center. So every time you guys try to access YouTube or download a video or play an online game or look for something on Google, what you're actually doing is you are accessing a data center. This data center could be in Chiba, Japan. It could be in Dublin, Ireland. It could be in Singapore. It could be in the United States. So you imagine the absolute length that your computer has to travel to get to the other data center that's located somewhere else. The only way for you to get the data is if you're accessing the data optically, because there's nothing faster than the speed of light. If you're not accessing it optically, it's too slow. You'll probably be waiting at your computer for days to get the data from the data center. So the research in my group, we're basically looking at ways to innovate these systems, architectures, and so on that propel the internet and support the speeds and bandwidth demands from consumers. In order to do that, we're looking at lasers. We're looking at new types of lasers that can support more than one channel of information. We're also looking at optical amplifiers, which are used to restore data along the networks. And this is one of the things that we worked on and published this year, is an optical amplifier that's size no larger than your fingernail, and amplifies light by 17,000 times. A similar optical amplifier today takes up the same space as an entire bedroom. So this is, we think, is something, we're onto something here. We could probably build results. So our goal, our mission, our vision really is to break the internet's limits, to support the virality, surges in bandwidth demands that come about when things like the Game of Thrones premiere on the internet, and also when celebrities post provocative pictures on Instagram and Facebook. So this brings me to the second part of my talk, which is entitled Managing Neurons, and it's really the reason why these guys have asked me to come here to talk. So you can tell from the earlier part of my talk, I'm not a neuroscientist by any means. I do not study neurons, and I don't even look at biology. I did study biology in the past, but that was a long time ago. So managing neurons in this context actually refers to the battle within my own psyche along the path of becoming an engineer. So going through college, graduate school, and today as an engineering professor, I have had to deal with some challenges, and I was actually enrolled in an electrical engineering major, and that tends to be one of the very male-dominated fields of study in the STEM group of fields. So I don't profess to know every single thing or have an immediate solution for how we're going to reverse it, but I can tell you some of the insights that I've learned along the way that are, rooted in some solid research from respected professors that I've had a chance to meet over the last few years. So when I was growing up, I was interested in building things. I was very interested in just making things on my own. And when we got our first computer, I remember learning how to do HTML coding very quickly because I thought, well, I can make a website, I can put my ideas out there. There was no Wix or Dreamweaver at the time, so basically you would have to do your own coding to make a website. And then later on, it became, and I say this because that did have an impact on me choosing to go into engineering. So I used to play a lot of video games, and I used to play a lot of first-person shooters, strategy games, and flight simulators. In fact, my favorite game growing up was a flight simulator, and I actually did that to my brother, who used to bring all these games home, and I would just play whatever he brought home. And eventually, when it came time for me to pick a major in college, I was thinking, well, there's not a very strong link between engineering and video games, but I thought that there was a way for me to maybe make my own things and possibly get into the domain of making video games. Of course, I'm not building video games now, and actually I would say that if you're not super intentional about your desires to become a video game programmer, you will probably not get there, because you need to know a very specific set of skills, which the vast diversity of engineering might not necessarily get you there. So what happened then was I enrolled in this engineering program. It was electrical engineering, and the first things that you would find that you would be hitting a wall, like all the ladies in the audience, you would be finding that you hit a wall. When you're in an engineering program and you have to work in a group, when you have to work in a group, that's when you realize that other people's projections of their perceptions on you are going to manifest themselves. And I remember whenever we were supposed to do laboratory experiments, let's say I was supposed to work with a spectrum analyzer and learn how to use it and finish my experiments, you'll find that there are certain groups where the guys just try to hawk equipment completely. And then some of my female peers, they would be okay with it. Sometimes they would just be a little fearful of the equipment. They don't want to break it. So other times there's maybe like a continence issue, and the guys in the group would say things like, oh, you ladies should just work on the report, and we will give you the results to draft out the report, and you could take minutes in the meantime. So that does not seem to be a unique experience, because talking to people from other institutions, some of the women I've met, they have this experience as well. And I remember to myself, I did go back to the laboratory after hours just to make sure that I knew how to use the equipment myself, because one thing is you want to learn how to use it so you can become a competent engineer. The other thing is the equipment is actually super fun to use, right? Because it allows you to observe physical phenomena that you wouldn't be able to do with your own eyes, because you're using very sophisticated instruments. So even as my role as a professor of engineering, currently when I teach students, we do a lot of board work at SUTD, and every now and then we do see that the students, some of the female students try to stay in the background. They might not necessarily go up to the board to be very active in their participation, and that's fine. That's not unique to SUTD either, because I have a really good friend in the top institution in America who does similar board work, and he's made the same observation about the girls in his freshman class. And so what happens is, you might think, what is causing this sort of behavior, especially the girls who are coming into the university as valedictorians, maybe they have perfect GPAs, and they're having this sort of, exhibiting this kind of behavior. It could possibly be that they're trying to fit in socially into the engineering environment, which is so male-dominated. One of the things that really became like an epiphany for me was, in 2014, I was a visiting professor at MIT. Ironically, I had organized a seminar on gender and engineering, and one of my key speakers was this professor, Susan Silvey. She's a professor of anthropology, sociology, and the humanities at MIT, and she had done a 9-year-long study of men and women in engineering programs across the United States. So she tracks them from the time they're freshmen up till 5 years post-college. And in her study, there are a lot of insights, so I'll just share some of the key ones that I thought were really enlightening. So the first is that the number of women entering engineering as a course of study is decent at 20%, but 40% of these do not continue professionally as engineers. So at SUT, we are looking at about 40%. We're actually doing better. But this statistic, 40% of these people do not continue professionally as engineers. This is really a call to action. What is happening with this 40%? In the beginning, just looking at the people going into engineering, there's already not many. And then 40% of these are not continuing professionally as engineers. So she then goes on to say that women and men are equally successful in the classroom, but women have a greater tendency towards self-doubt in their problem-solving skills. So when I heard this, it was like a major light bulb went off in my head, because I did have a lot of personal battles with myself when I was in college and graduate school. Like, if some of the concepts were very tough and I took a longer time to understand them, I would be second-guessing myself. Why is it taking so long for me to understand this concept? I should be understanding this much more quickly. Or the times when I had to do experiments for my graduate work, and they seemed like insurmountable at the time, and I would be second-guessing myself and really beating myself up unnecessarily. So when I saw this little idea, or this thing from Susan Silvey about the inclination of women to self-doubt their problem-solving skills, it was very enlightening for me. And in a sense, when you are placed in a male-dominated environment, your tendency to self-doubt becomes amplified tenfold, because now you're also having to deal with the projections of other people's perceptions on yourself. So then I came across another thing that was also very enlightening, and which I drew a lot of strength from. So these are 4 people. Their names aren't underneath, but you probably know who they are anyway. There's Natalie Portman. She is a 2-time Golden Globe Award winner, and she also is a graduate of Harvard University. Tina Fey is one of my personal favorites and a stalwart of Saturday Night Live. Professor Amy Cuddy is a professor of psychology at Harvard University. And Mike Myers is best known for his hilarious rendition or portrayal of Austin Powers in the movie. So, of the four of these people, I guess one of the running themes or threats that binds them together is the fact that they are high achievers. But the other thing that really binds them together, which is why I put four of them together, is because they are self-professed sufferers of something that's called imposter syndrome. Has anybody heard of this thing called the imposter syndrome? So this imposter syndrome manifests itself in the following ways. So Natalie Portman, in a recent Harvard commencement speech to the graduating class, graduating undergraduates, she says that during her time at Harvard, she was always thinking that whenever she opened her mouth to speak, she would have to prove to other people that she's not just a dumb actress. And the reason that she got into Harvard, she thinks, is because she's famous, and that's what everyone else thought about her as well. So Mike Myers, a very funny guy, he says that he keeps waiting for the no-telling police to show up and arrest him. So the imposter syndrome manifests itself this way, and actually the imposter syndrome is something that prevents high achievers or normal human beings like myself from internalizing their own achievements and always second-guessing themselves and worrying that they'll be exposed as fraud. So I actually first heard about this concept from a very good speaker called Dr. Valerie Young at an MIT webinar, which I attended. And she is an awesome speaker, and she's given talks on imposter syndrome globally, and she's actually researched this topic for 20 years. And she says in an interview, when it comes to failures and mistakes, girls internalize and boys externalize. And what that means is that if a woman fails a test, for example, she blames herself, and a guy who fails the same test would think that the professor was stupid. So the girls would reproach themselves and blame themselves, whereas the guys would just blame, well, maybe I didn't have enough time for the midterm, or the midterm hall was too cold, or, well, the professor was stupid, he didn't teach this right. So on the top of that, the other thing, it's like a double whammy. Dr. Valerie Young also says that imposter syndrome is more likely to afflict a woman than a man. It afflicts men as well, but it is so much more common for a woman. So it made perfect sense to me. This was the second time I was hearing it from someone else doing her own independent research. It was completely consistent with my own experiences. My experience was also similar to what Professor Susan Silvey articulated, and everything just felt like one big major light bulb. If we put everything in context, I feel like what we can draw from this is, since we understand that we are inclined towards self-doubt, maybe ladies are more inclined to self-doubt than other people, you really need to fight this instinct. So since I have heard about these two pieces of research, I've actually make it a habit of not self-doubting myself. I deal with a lot of difficult problems every single day in teaching and in research, and especially in research, because it's not always easy to figure out what's going on with, this device that you've just designed. Why are the experiments looking so strange? And it's very easy for me to fall back into that pattern of self-doubt and thinking, well, I'm not good enough, maybe I can't do it. So if you change your hardwiring and tell yourself, well, you're going to spiral down this path of self-doubt, you've got to stop it immediately and nip it in the bud. And that's what I've been doing since I've read about Susan Silvey's research and also heard from Dr. Valerie Young. This is what I've made a point to do in my professional work. Which brings me to the last part of my talk, which is how do we even get women into the field of engineering or STEM in the first place? Because if you can't even get them through the door to go into those majors, don't even have to talk about the concept of confidence in engineering women. So for this part, I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I want all the ACJC teachers to close their eyes, because you guys should not see the result. So all the guys and ladies in the audience, how many of you are self-professed video gamers. Like, you love to play video games, can't live without them, and you enjoy it so much that, you know, it's your number one thing. ACJC teachers, like, close your eyes. We're the teachers. I see people turning their heads, like, okay, all of you that raise your hands, if you're a lady, leave your hand up. If you're a guy, put your hand down. Okay, the ACJC teachers should be very happy because there's very few. You guys don't want your teachers to see, right? Because there's cameras, right? But the reason I'm doing this poll is because, well, for one thing I didn't mention, I felt like video games could help me to, you know, bridge the gap between, you know, engineering, deciding to do engineering. And I want to take you through a little bit of history of video games. In the 80s, which you guys were not born yet, there were these games like Pac-Man and Tetris and Bubble Bobble. I played all these games, they're fun. They're very simple, and you don't have to crack your head or be super coordinated. You don't have to have very good hand-eye coordination to play these games. And then in the 90s, you see like Street Fighter 2 and Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. Arguably like more male-centric games, and Final Fantasy 7, they've got sounds pretty good, you know, protagonists and that, so I would say that's gender neutral. But you see the shift, like between the 80s, where the games are super gender neutral, and then in the 90s, they become a little bit more male-centric. And then today, like, look at the best-selling games of 2016. Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, and then Battlefield 1, and then the third one is Tom Clancy's The Division. And I actually took this information from Forbes. They published best-selling games in 2016. And it's become super male-centric, and the protagonists are testosterone-driven men, and you will barely see any game with a female protagonist that's not highly sexualized. Like, which female wants to play Lara Croft as Tomb Raider? That's not really a game that is for women. So the reason I bring this up is because another very strong lady in STEM, Melinda Gates, is one of the 3 stewards of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which has a total endowment of $40 billion. And she started out her career as a computer scientist in Microsoft, and she rose through the ranks in 9 years. Now she, together with Bill Gates, her husband, and Warren Buffett, they are full-time philanthropy. So she says, I care about computer science. When I was in school in the 1980s, women got about 37% of computer science degrees and law degrees then. And then law went up to 47%, and in medicine, we were at 28% in 1984, and that's gone up to 48%. Computer science went from 37% to 18%. So we've gone down in that particular field by a whole 20%. So this is troubling to her, and I believe she is starting to assemble a team to look at this problem. But she also talks about her observation about video games, which was when she was growing up, all the games were very gender neutral. And then over time, it kind of evolved into being very male-centric. A lot of it might have to do with, you know, maybe more men were in the fields of making video games, and that's why, you know, men create video games for other men. And she feels like that could have been why a lot of the people that could have gone into computer science kind of dropped off, because if you extrapolate from that, she's trying to say, and I also think that this is a very possible link, that, you know, women who engage in video games could very likely become like enthusiasts for computer science. So now we're totally missing out on an entire source of women computer scientists, because, you know, look at the games, like, I don't want to play any of these games. They look very, like, they're just pumped up from violence, and, you know, whoever kills whoever first wins. It's not very appealing to women. And to get a sense of the scale of this problem, well, there's this game called Candy Crush. How many of you played Candy Crush? Okay, so Candy Crush was sold in 2015 to another company called Activision Blizzard that makes all these male games for about $6 billion US. And for a simple game like Candy Crush, that's saying a lot. They're trying to capture the female demographic, because Candy Crush is really a game that caters to women. So if you take this concept one step further, I would say if you wanted to get more women into engineering or STEM fields, one of the ways to do it is to engage in preemptive activities that would enable women to be confident about their success in the engineering environment. Because the computer science and engineering or STEM environment, they're very male-centric, very male-dominated in terms of statistics and not by ability, then what you're going to see is that the women could be intimidated in those scenarios if they have not engaged in certain other environments where there were, maybe more males present. So I would say things like, coding a robot or building things like building little prototypes, playing video games. I would even say playing video games that guys think they're good at and beating them at their own game, because that kind of gives you a cachet that next time when you're in engineering or STEM field, you can go back and say, well, guys are supposed to be good at that game, but I beat them, so I'm going to beat them here as well. So, in all the guys in the audience, I would say, well, I'm really talking about this to address the ladies in the audience, but it is still something I hope these insights are useful, because if you have a girlfriend, this girlfriend might become your wife. Once you have a wife, you're going to have a kid, right? One or a few kids, maybe 5 kids. And perhaps 2 or 3 of these kids are going to be your daughters. And you want to be, a good father, you want to be a good partner, a good husband. And you want to be able to support your daughter or your wife if they decide to pursue something in STEM, because a lot of support is required. Research also shows that women are more inclined to try to find assurance from other people. And this sort of assurance we can give them with the insights that are availed by the research that's been done today. And if all of you guys don't remember anything from this talk, ladies, I want to tell you, you need to battle your own self-inclination to doubt yourselves. You are as good as all the guys, if not better. And if you have this self-doubt, make it a habit of taking it out of your system. And the other thing is to engage in some preemptive activities that's going to help you to have confidence when you go to a STEM major or in a STEM job. So, thank you.